Hello, manga and anime lovers. I'm Branch, and today I'm going to be talking about the first season of Kyoani, which is something I usually don't do. I usually don't do reviews of whole seasons, but I think I'm going to go into that more because reviewing every episode is a little bit exhausting, and also I can only talk about so much. I can't really discuss, main points or overarching themes because I'm talking on an episode per episode basis. Whereas now, with the entire first season behind my belt, I have some pretty solid thoughts on K-On! And some thoughts that I think a lot of people have not expressed, at least not as many people as have expressed pure adulation for this show, if that's the right word. Now me, I've been a huge Kyoani fan for a long time. I absolutely adored Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, or even from the manga, but the anime adaptation was absolutely incredible. And as well as other shows like Hyoka, how could I ever forget Hyoka? One of the best anime that exists, really. It is definitely up in the top tier of like 9 out of 10 anime. If only it was continued, it would probably be 9.5. And then, of course, how could I forget Nichijou, which is one of the series that I really don't know what to say about, but I know that I enjoyed watching it, even if I wasn't particularly tickled by the jokes. It was very high quality, and I did appreciate it, more so for the characters than for the actual comedy, which I think is a little bit of a strange take to have, but I still really liked it nonetheless, and I'm excited for City, which is coming up, I think maybe later this year, but that's besides the point. My point for this part is that I really do love Kyoani shows, so I was really excited to finally watch K-On!, which was one of their, not their original shows, but one of their earlier productions, and I wanted to watch it because I want to watch shows like Hibike, I don't know what it is, Euphorium and Bocchi the Rock, but I wanted to start with, one of the originals, which was K-On!, of course, one of the original high school, I guess, I almost said musical, but that was completely not the case. Music-oriented high school shows. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Shows where the characters are in a band of some kind and the show revolves around that. Now, I had heard a lot of things going into it, as you have to, being on the internet and being an anime fan. People talk about the show all the time. You see memes from it all the time. You see images, clips, etc., and so on and so forth. I had the impression that it was a slice of life show that was generally focused around music sometimes and had good songs and was obviously Kyoani, so top-notch quality, and was just a fun time. On the surface, that is exactly what I got. However, there is a lot underneath the hood that I have I don't want to say mixed feelings on, because that sounds very negative, but very strange feelings on, I will say that. Now, I love slice of life shows. In fact, I would say you can probably not find another person who likes slice of life more than I do, because I like characters above all else when it comes to anime or any medium, whether it be games, well, games are different because they're games, but any story, whether it be in games or movies or anime or manga or literally anything, characters will always come out on top for me. If the story has good characters, then I really don't care too much about the rest. It's why I love One Piece. I mean, I love One Piece for other reasons as well, but mostly for the characters. It's why I love the Monogatari series, despite some aspects of it, because the characters are the best characters I've ever read. And it's why I really liked shows like Hyoka and Frieren, of course. How could I forget Frieren and Apothecary Diaries? Those shows have characters that are they're beyond reckoning. They're written so well. So when I was going to K-On!, I was kind of expecting some really good characters. Now, I knew it was basically a slice of life cutesy show with some music in it. So it's not like I was expecting the moon or anything, but I was expecting something Kyoani adjacent to other shows that they had adapted before, which I know sounds weird because the characters depend on the source material, but they have been known to make changes to stories in order to, I guess, better adapt them. I know Nichijou was one of them where they reorganized a whole bunch of stuff, apparently. Also, I'm pretty sure K-On! Was a little bit changed as well, even though I don't know too much about it. But so it struck me as odd that the characters in K-On! Are not really up to par, is what I would say. Now, that's not to say that they're bad. In fact, every character is very memorable and has a very good personality and has a really great role in the team dynamic. But I always felt that something was missing with them. And I think it really all comes down to the pacing of the show. That might have sounded like it came out of absolutely left field, and I was not foreshadowing it at all. But that is truly the problem with K-On! Season 1, and the only reason I was left a little bit confused after finishing it, and not with the highest of hearts, as I guess you could say, like I was after other Kyoani shows. And it's because the pacing of K-On! Is just weird, man. Season 1 especially. I haven't seen Season 2 or the movie, and I expect them to be a little bit different since Season 1 of a show is usually, they don't know if they're going to get a Season 2, so it's kind of rough around the edges. But once a show gets popular enough, second season is usually where it really pops off. Shows like, for example, Working is one of them. Although Working Season 1 was really good. In fact, Season 3 had that problem. But that's besides the point. So, I was not expecting K-On! Season 1 to be as rough around the edges as it was. And I say that with all the respect in the world, because you can really see that Kyoani put a lot of effort into this show. Like, the animation is incredible, with the exception of one episode that is weirdly, uncharacteristically stiff, I would say. They use a lot of still shots and moving still images across the screen. But that's only one episode, and it was in Kyoani's early days, so I really don't care. The voice acting was really good. Every character's voice actress did a wonderful job. The music, I don't even need to talk about the music. Everyone knows the music is good. The opening and ending are incredible, etc., etc. The problem, as I've said before, is the pacing. And I don't mean the pacing episode to episode, because each episode has basically immaculate pacing in and of itself, from the beginning to the end. You never feel like it's dragging or it's going too quick. The problem with the pacing is the overall season pacing. And let me explain what I mean by that. The first episode is kind of, I guess, in a way foreshadowing this, where it basically takes place, I believe, over the course of like a month or maybe a couple months. No, it has to have been only a month and a little more, while the whole music club is being formed. And I was a little bit surprised that things were moving so quickly, but I figured, you know what, it's a short season, so things are probably just going to be moving at a pretty quick pace throughout the entire show. No, because then it slows down a lot from there. And then in the middle, it kind of picks up again, and it slows down in the second half when Azusa is introduced. And then toward the end, it really picks up, and really watching the show feels like you're getting intense whiplash. And the problem with the pacing is not that it's uneven, despite the fact that I'm kind of complaining about it being uneven, because we went through 2 school years in this one season alone, which is crazy. I felt like I'd watched 2 seasons by the end of the show. But the true problems lie in the character arcs. The pacing of the character arcs is the only thing I was disappointed in this show. Because they are all over the place, man. I really don't understand, why they were placed the places that they were placed in. Like, the first arc before their first concert is pretty good. Like, it's ramping up, it's showing how, oh my goodness, why am I forgetting their names now? How the I want to say the de facto head of the club, even though she's not really the bassist. She's worried. She's trying to get them hyped up for the concert and to practice. Then they go to summer camp. Stuff happens. If you watch the show, you know how it goes. And it ramps up to that first concert, and man, that first concert is probably one of the best episodes in the show because it is so nerve-wracking. I know what that feeling is like, not obviously playing on stage, but working up to doing something that's so far out of your comfort zone, and the nervousness is unreal. After we finished that first arc, I was really looking forward to the rest of the show because I assumed naturally that the rest of the show would be something like this. Either each arc would build to their next concert or would build to another achievement, either a character growth moment or something of the sort. And yet it kind of didn't. I guess the second arc was kind of them doing the cultural festival and building up to that, but it wasn't nearly as, I want to say, linear as the first one. It wasn't obvious it was leading up to that. And then the second one afterwards, when it started with Azusa, then it seemed like they were leading up to something, but it just led up to her joining the group, and then kind of not a lot happened. There wasn't really a goal until the end of the season, which it kind of really just jumped right to that in the last couple of episodes. So I guess you can kind of see what I mean by the pacing being really weird. But while I don't particularly care for that kind of thing, it doesn't matter too much if the characters are really good, like I said before. And I've also said that the characters are really good. However, they're missing something vital, and that is well-paced character arcs. Now, shows like, what's a good example? Detective Conan, maybe, where there are not a lot of character arcs in that show. Things are so spread out that to see an actual character arc takes like 100 or so episodes. But I love Detective Conan, so I'm not opposed to static characters. I also really, really like, character heavy stories where characters are constantly developing, like Monogatari and like One Piece. K-On! I don't know. I can't honestly not tell you whether the characters changed after the first story arc or not. Like, sure, they adjusted a little bit, especially when Azusa joined, but you'd be hard pressed to say that they changed. They didn't really change at all, except for the final story arc where the two, I can't remember their names again. I'm sorry. I should. The two heads of the music club, well, the actual head and then the unofficial head who is better at being the head. The two best friends are going at it because they get into a petty squabble, and things escalate from there, and eventually it gets resolved, and all that's really good. However, it happens in like the last 2 or 3 episodes, with almost no build-up before that. And that's what I mean by really uneven pacing, in that good things happen, like good arcs happen, but they're so weirdly spread out. It's almost like the show is compartmentalized into character development sections and slice of life, nothing really happens section. And it just throws me off when I watch it. And that's the one thing that I was a little bit disappointed in K-On! Like, everything else is really good. That's not exactly entirely true. So a lot of the humor isn't quite, all that. Now, this is coming from the person who didn't really laugh a lot at Nichijou. But, I did laugh a bit at K-On!, but some of the humor just felt a little bit overdone. And I guess it comes to a point where some of the characters almost feel malicious when they're being themselves, where they're actually making other characters suffer because they're being either too relaxed or not taking things seriously or taking things too seriously. And this is all supposed to be in the service of a gag. However, if a gag based on, I don't want to say violence because it's not violence, but a gag based on hurting someone else becomes very seriously unfunny if it's not funny. Now, that just sounded completely bizarre, but if you take a gag seriously, oftentimes it's a bit worrisome. And that's what I felt with some of the jokes in K-On!, especially during the Azusa introduction section, was really painful because everyone was just ignoring her when she was trying to, put forth good ideas and ingratiate herself into the club. And, it all works out in the end and everyone gets along, but you just can't help feeling, but man, that was a little bit awkwardly done. Like, I don't know if the writers understand that everyone, steamrolling over her and ignoring her and being mean to her, not purposely, but, by accident, and then never addressing this again. In fact, not addressing it so much that it happens again in the final episode between the two best friends. I wonder if the authors or the story writers understand that it's not particularly entertaining. I don't find it entertaining. And again, this is coming from the guy who loves One Piece. And there is a lot of this kind of stuff in One Piece. But it works in One Piece because One Piece is extremely over the top and melodramatic sometimes. And it's that way purposefully. Hearing in a sincere show like K-On!, I just don't know if it works. I think the teacher is a particularly bad example of this, or maybe a good example for my argument, because she is really not that great of a guy, not that great of a person. She's weirdly pushy with making dresses for everyone and making them uncomfortable with doing so. I mean, it all turns out good in the end. They wind up liking the outfits almost every time, or just refusing to wear them. And it's not that I don't like her, because I do like her. The problem in that is that she really is mismatched with the way K-On! Presents its jokes. And I really don't know how else to put it aside from what I've said. It's a really odd problem to have, but I just kind of felt it. Again, it's not quite as egregious as the whole pacing issue, but it's just something that I felt while watching it, and I managed to formulate an opinion based around it. That being said, putting the teacher aside, everyone else's behavior that could be seen as a little bit mean or over the top, it really is not that surprising for middle school girls or middle school boys even. I know quite a few people like that, let's just say, and it's about what you would expect. this is one of those shows that, looking at it from a not-anime view, weirdly helps in sympathizing with the characters a whole lot. And I guess that's the praise I can give the show, is that it's quite realistic in that regard. There's a lot of things in this show that are really kind of over the top and, anime-like, but the personalities and the way the characters interact a lot are very, very reminiscent of real-life people. And I guess I can really appreciate that. I wish the pacing of the show was a little slower, and maybe we'll get that in season 2. I hope so. I wish it was also more, balanced, and we got to see a lot of not just lazing around doing nothing, but a lot of formulating songs and coming up with ideas and things like that. Like we see on occasion, but not enough, I would say, especially for this kind of show. I just wish they committed to, I don't want to say one side or the other, but committed to doing both at once instead of constantly switching between the slice of life and the character development band section. And that's really all I have to say. Now, let me not dissuade you from thinking that I didn't enjoy the show, because I really did enjoy the show. It's just that I had such an odd feeling after finishing it that I just had to get out and tell someone about it. But I'll stop now, because at this point I'm just repeating myself. I am really looking forward to watching season 2, because I think it's a little longer than season 1. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do with these characters now that we've had a lot of time establishing everything. Alright, well, that being said, that's all I really had to say about Kyoani Season 1. Hope to see you in whatever video I make next, maybe even review a Kyoani Season 2. Bye.